I'm typically Maureen is late. Will be late. Delayed. Pat Lager is here. That's Maureen is here. All right. Are we missing anyone? The staff. All right. Moving on to the next agenda item, approve agenda. And entertain a motion to approve our agenda with the correction of the updated Zoom information. Correct, meeting?
Move.
Okay. Supervisor Mons makes motion, Supervisor Troop seconds it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The agenda is approved. Moving on to agenda item number 5, approval of minutes from the September 6th, 2022 committee meeting. Has everyone had the opportunity to review?
So move.
Actually, don't review it, but that's okay. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing that there's no corrections, the minutes are approved. Public participation, limited to the agenda items. Is there any public participation that you're aware of? Okay. Are there any participants on? I don't see any. Okay. Moving on to correspondence. Is there any correspondence? Any from you? Any correspondence? Okay. Going on to the extension section. Do we need to do an interview or a introduction, or are we good? All right, we're going to go on. Pat, could we have your AED report?
This work.
Yep, microphone.
Hello. Sorry about my kid. So since our meeting in September, primarily I have been involved just working with other counties. This county has been pretty smooth. We met with Kyle, so things look good for our budget, and Cynthia. I was able to participate in the department head retreat, which I thought was a wonderful opportunity for me to get to know people, and I was excited to see that the county board had done a similar retreat, and they have the information now, and our departments are looking at how we would address the priorities that your county board identified. So that'll be a good thing moving forward. And other than that, we're still looking at food-wise. No, that's wrong. Food-wise is in the other part of my area. So that's pretty much what I've been up to. We do have a guest today. She's a previous extension educator from Adams County who works in a different role. So it's Jennifer Swenson. So if anybody remember her, Jennifer was able to join us today because we had a retirement gathering for Julie Roseberry, who will be ending her role as a nutrition educator in the next week.
Welcome, Jennifer. You're behind a chair.
Hello. She wanted a tour of your new facility, and she said it was great.
Awesome. Are there any questions for Pat or the staff? I don't see you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I'm supposed to announce Sheila is not able to be with us today. She is teaching at the school, so she'll be back next time. She's going to juggle her schedule a little bit. The last day.
Thank you. Moving on to item 9, educators report. Are there any Sheila might be fielding her questions through you, Pat?
Yes.
Okay. Or in here, Lynn is here, Natasha is here. Are there any questions? None. I have a couple. Evan, are the numbers of the 4-H families going up, down, staying static with the outreach that you guys have been doing?
Yeah, this is a really good question. Thank you for asking. Our numbers are staying the same at the moment. We will continue to receive enrollment throughout this school year, program year, as families and members can enroll at any time.
Okay. Also, I noticed on there that you had paintball, laser tag, and trampoline not allowed. Are those not allowed, or are they implied within the higher risk activities?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat it one more
You
time?
bet. Paintball, laser tag, and trampoline are outside of normal activities. Are they not allowed,
or are they applied in the higher risk activities?
They're applied in the higher risk activities.
Okay, and those need approval through, okay,
Correct, yeah.
okay. And then also, and this is just a general observation, when we mention planning in our reports, and that's in anybody's reports, could we maybe include the timeline or desired outcome event date? So that we know, are we looking at this year, next year, and if so, when in the year? So, and I'm gonna be saying that at the land and water section too, so. Okay. Supervisor Moore.
Can you give an example? Like what may have happened that, or, because I'd like to be very keen on that also. I'm very goal driven, so, and goals need an end date and a start date.
So yes, when I was looking under Evans, it says planning for 2023 camp program. I'm just curious if there's a date on that, or if it's kind of in the planning stages, which is always difficult to actually knock down a date. Also in Sheila's, there was planning for a full day conference, youth in action for 9th grade students. It would be nice to know when that is. Planning for the development and distribution of electronic print resources for parents and guardians. There's a couple other ones where it's just a little unknown for me where it is on the horizon. So if that would be okay, I would appreciate it.
Yes, and Madam Chair, I just want to make a correction. So to your question about paintballing, those are high risk. However, at this time, they are not allowed program activities for our forest program.
Period. Even in the high risk.
Correct,
Okay,
yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Did that answer your question, Supervisor Moore?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other questions for?
Want Evan to answer the camp planning? Because he can do that.
Sure, if he would love to, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, so in particular,
Correct me, I'm gonna get the name.
At Upham Woods?
Yes, Upham Woods.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yep, so, we have camped at Upham Woods for, to use as our camp, program. We are exploring just other avenues as well as keeping Upham Woods in the running as well, but yeah, it is that program.
Evan, is the reason that you're exploring other avenues because of the broader reach for all the various counties that are involved? Okay.
Yeah, yep, and we just wanted to explore too, like what other programs camps offer, just to find more sparks for our members that attend.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well,
All right, return my table.
Madam Chair, can I add one more thing to my report?
Yes,
So I am working with the 5 counties in Area 14, and we're going to be doing a fall connection as an activity. So we will have all of the staff from the extension office. I talked to Cynthia and Kyle kind of in a backwards way, but we've got it moved out. So they will all be out of the office on the 24th of October.
okay.
And I was going to speak to the gun thing. Because I was a 4-H educator once, we had to go through the process of incorporating 4-H shooting sports into Wisconsin 4-H a number of years ago, and the decision was made at that time that they would not allow any kind of a gun, laser tag, water gun, whatever, to be pointed at another individual. So that's stayed consistent with that, to keep that a good, shooting sports a good program, and then keeping people consistent.
And Pat, did you say that that was just county or state?
Statewide.
Statewide, okay, thank you.
Sure.
I noticed that it was there, and so I thought I would. Oh,
Okay.
So you said on October 24th, there will not be any staff in the office. The office will be closed.
Correct, except that we had that really awesome relationship with ADRC, so if somebody pops in and has a question, then they'll be able to be directed.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we will be moving on to item 10, 2023 extension budget. Are there any questions or discussion regarding the budget and the changes as written? I have one. Okay, county manager Higgard, is she on?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Could you maybe explain the changes to the budget as presented? There's a couple of items where we see 2023 extension and then we see 2023 county manager.
Sure, Madam Chair. The process is that first, the departments have an ask. So this is the request. That will be the department, I guess. If you look at the first 2023 column, that's coming from the department, that's their ask or request. It then goes through another meeting process where Kyle and I actually meet with the department head and we go line by line and we look at historical average, we look at reasonableness, and there are some challenge questions. So if it did change, you are now looking at the last column under the heading county manager as being the final budget request or
Okay,
recommendation.
okay, so to be clear, when we make our motions and second and pass this, maybe today to admin by, we're looking at the 2023 county manager budget column. Just to make everybody aware of that. Thank you, county manager Haggard.
Thanks for asking.
No worries. Are there any other questions? Supervisor Mons.
I've noticed one in there that is a little surprising. If you go toward the top again, please, if you could scroll, and that is the what is revenue was anticipated at 14.7, but is now 26.80. I'm not following there, I guess.
We don't have that on our screen. Right?
Yeah, it's
It
top
should be
part,
right.
item number one, account number 100. This,
Madam Chair.
Yes, county manager.
Okay. So what I can offer you is that if you look to the left under the account numbers, these are summary totals. So when you see like ... it's summarizing certain groups all together into one number. So the detail that flows into those numbers is listed above it. So like, for instance, you'll see 100R 42 ... That takes everything into a 4.2 category and sum totals it. The next one down takes all of it, all revenue. So that's why you're seeing such a huge difference there. Your detail about the changes will be listed above. For instance, fund balance applied. That's a big change right there. That's one of the things that would have changed. It went from 11,530 down to 0. As far as if you want to get into more detail than that, I do see Kyle is in the meeting. So if you need any more information than that, then I defer to Kyle to kind of dive into the detail.
my question is answered.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you. Thanks
County
for asking.
manager Haggard. Okay,
So my question would be, so just, I can't see on Zoom and look at that agenda at the same time, so. I'm looking at the top of the budget. And for example, under the UW extension, I believe it is revenue. The proposal, department proposal is 14,780, and the county manager has 2,680. So I guess my question is, why the drastic difference?
Madam Chair,
go ahead. Is it Supervisor Group that just said that, or, oh, I'm sorry, this is Kyle, sorry.
Yep.
I saw an eye coming around the chair and I misassumed, so, okay, yeah, Kyle, go ahead.
yeah, so the drastic difference there is mainly the fund balance applied. So in the past, they have applied fund balance to be spent down in their budget. So it's previously the board had committed funds for UW extension for certain activities, special projects and stuff like that. But going forward, we're no longer going to have those committed funds unless there's donated funds, then we're going to have those committed funds. So we just removed that entirely. So that way we don't have a spend down of fund balance that isn't there anymore, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing no more questions, I would entertain a motion to send the finalized draft of the 2023 UW extension budget to the Administrative and Finance Committee. I have a first motion by Supervisor Mullins. Do I have a second? Second by Supervisor Crew. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. There's one nay, majority is A, motion. is passed. Do you need any comments? Okay. Moving on to agenda item 11, generate and discuss ARPA ideas. Pat,
We don't have anything at this time. Our staff meeting last month was abbreviated, so we will talk about that again. I mean, if you're still taking ideas. No, I don't remember. Do you have a specific timeline?
I think the timeline and Supervisor, County Manager Hager could answer this, but I'm assuming when the funds run out,
Okay.
they're, yeah, that's the timeline, but, County Manager Hager, do you have any timeline?
Madam Chair. So with ARPA funds, we have until 2024, so December 2024 to commit the funds. And I believe we have until 2026 to actually expend the funds, which means to actually have them gone, spent. So right now, I believe the balance that is that's undesignated is still around roughly $1.2 million. 1.2, 1.3, something to that effect. And
And
again,
yes,
we have Kyle in if you want exact numbers.
I think a general number is adequate. So you were saying that any ideas generated and discussing, going to the ARPA committee need to be in place prior to December of 2024.
Yes, and Madam Chair, if you do have recommendations for the use of ARPA funds, we ask that we be able to line that up with the purpose, or, that it fulfills one of the ARPA guidelines, right? And then next we will have to have a number and how that number was derived.
Did everyone hear that? Okay. So you want to line it up with the ARPA parameters, thank you. And then have an absolute number in mind.
Okay.
So, okay, so I will have this stay on the agenda.
Sure.
So we can discuss it later on. Okay, are there any other comments, discussion?
Madam Chair, sorry,
Yeah.
one more. So one more thing about ARPA funds. We have to be ready to produce the resolution at the ARPA work group level, which will then move on to admin FI as an official resolution. So that's where that's why we need all the information. The resolution is developed within that work group.
So then are you saying that the 2024 deadline is probably not good? We should go back to October 2024 to go through that process, or November 2024?
So whatever meeting in the admin FI and then also onto the board in December, right? Because we have until the end of December of 2024 to commit. So if it goes in the form of a resolution, you'd want that resolution approved in December. That would be the latest target date.
Okay, so then I would say maybe to be on the safe side, October 2024 should be the generation and moving forward in the process. Okay, thank you, County Manager Hager. Okay, financials, they were
Comment, please.
certainly Supervisor Moon.
You gotta remember, these funds are being used, so
Get
just
them
keep that in mind. That's all I'm gonna say, just keep that in mind. At every county board meeting, it's brought up, at other meetings, other committees, other people, these funds are being used.
Yeah, I wouldn't assume that they're,
No, I understand that. Okay.
okay, all right. Thank you, Supervisor Moon. Okay, financials, expense and revenue were attached. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we will say that the extension portion of this meeting has come to a conclusion. And you may either stay or leave. We appreciate you attending. Thank you very much. Moving on to land and water. Agenda item 13, Healthy Lakes and Rivers Grant Resolution.
Resolution, Mike, please. Okay. This is a resolution for funding, and Anna is here. She is the one spearheading, I guess, this, and she would be more than happy to answer any questions.
Anna, do you want to activate your microphone? Does anyone have any questions for Anna? Does Anna want to give a small description?
Yeah, I can do that. So, the Healthy Lakes and Rivers grants, are through the DNR Surface Water Protection Grant Pool. It's just a smaller pool of funding within that larger pool. And individual property owners on lakefront properties can apply for a surface water grant through Healthy Lakes and Rivers, where they will receive up to $1,000 in funding to put in a 350 square foot native planting, rain gardens, or there's a couple of different options. But this grant application that we filled out, it has native plantings, 350 square foot native plantings. And then I think there's 2 rain gardens on there, but they are all on lakefront properties throughout the county.
So I guess the one question I have is, you said 1,000.
Yes.
That's a cost share. So 1,000 comes from, no,
It's not a cost share, it's just a grant match, so, they will give you in a grant form $1,000 for a planting, but your project has to exceed that $1,000, right? So, for the native plantings, I estimated with prices of equipment going up, materials going up, and then plants are the most expensive part of the native planting and the rain gardens. Each project is estimated about $1,300. So the $1,000, the first $1,000 is covered by the grant. The remaining portion of whatever is spent is covered by the landowner.
okay. I'm sorry, go ahead, Supervisor Laughlin.
Thank you. The first comment I have doesn't have anything to do with him, but I really don't like the fact that we can't scroll through our stuff on screen. That's a hindrance, but anyway. Look, I did a couple of comments. I think the project is certainly a good thing, absolutely. The fiscal note, it says no match is required by the county, but in an area where be it further resolved. Comply with all local, state, and federal regulations and ordinance related to this project and the cost share agreement. If there's no cost sharing, there's no cost share agreement. Right?
But she referred to the landowner. So I shouldn't speak for you.
Well, I think that should just be made clear that that's not clear.
The $1,000, each individual award does come through the county initially. And then is dispersed accordingly. So that would be still part of the cost share agreement overall. But the county is not spending any money towards these projects. But we are the middleman.
Okay, I think I understand that. I'm just saying the resolution doesn't say that. I mean, reading it for what you're reading doesn't tell you it's cost share by the landowner.
But if the money is, if the money is coming through the county, they have to cover that. The Adams County Land and Water Department will meet the financial obligations necessary to fully and satisfactorily complete the project. So that means that they are responsible for the $1,000.
Right.
But then in his question, which comes up here, then how do you make the landowner responsible if he says, I'm not paying it?
So each individual landowner, before we even applied or put their property in this application, was required to fill out a pledge and a contract. And in the contract, it does state that the landowner is responsible for any monetary value for each project exceeding the $1,000. So I think to clarify a little bit, DNR, who gives out this grant, cannot give these money directly to the landowner. So they have to use some government entity, Land and Water, Adams County, as a middleman, like Dusty said, for the initial grant monies, right? So Dusty and I had this conversation where, is it easier for Land and Water to front the first $1,000 and then us get reimbursed, or the landowner to pay all of the initial costs, then keep detailed record of their receipts, submit that to us, then they would have to fill out a reimbursement form to Land and Water. So then when we would get the money from the DNR, we would have to reimburse the landowner. We thought it might just be easiest if we pay the first initial $1,000. So then you're not asking the landowner to keep track of all of those, receipts or anything like that, right? It's just on our end. We want to make this process as simple as possible for the landowners, because they are doing a favor to the natural resources, and that's one of the main goals of our department.
Supervisor Weaver?
Yes, Madam Chair. So does the DNR set the guidelines? And so in other words, you have a list of plantings of construction and all that. So does the landowner provide you with a list, or do you give the list to the landowner?
So the Healthy Lakes and Rivers projects, they have specific guidelines for 6 different planting types, just for the native plantings, right? Just for the 350 square foot native plantings. They have specific pre-made lists of plants, their species, and the amount of plants that have to be within that 350 square feet. So there's a couple of different options. There's low growing, deer resistant, shade tolerant, etc. That when we're working with landowners, I give them this list. They say, and I advise them on what's going to probably work best for their property. And they say, okay, I would like to go with this list. And then I work with the nursery to select all of these plants. And then the nursery that we work with as well, they really like the Healthy Lakes initiative. So they actually give the county departments a discount with larger orders if these plants are for a shoreline project.
Is this list on guidelines, whatever you call them, is it available to us?
It is. If you'd like, you can swing by my office after the meeting. I have a paper copy of all these lists, or you could visit the Healthy Lakes and Rivers website online.
Healthy Lakes and Rivers?
Yep. And then you'll want to, under practices, at the top, there's a 350 square foot tab that you can select, and then it'll be under the planting companion guide.
Thank you.
You probably won't sell a lot of the native poison ivy, that'll probably be last to go.
Let's hope so.
Cattails?
So Anna, I just for clarity, you already knew how many landowners were looking at this.
Yep, and I have, so we've got 1, 2. We've got 2 landowners on Guinness Lake, and each of those landowners has 2 350 square foot native plantings. We have 2 on Lake Camelot. One of these property owners has 2 native plantings and 2 rain gardens, and then the other one has 2 native plantings. So 10 native plantings, and so 8 native plantings and 2 rain gardens in total.
But each are for the grant
Correct.
side 1,000.
Correct.
Okay, so we're looking, okay, so one question I have is, how do people become aware of it?
Just by spreading the word, when Chuck and I get asked to come out and do a shoreline evaluation, a lot of the times, people want to just rip wrap their shoreline. Riprap has no ecological value and provides no benefit back to the ecological community. So I bring pamphlets with me and I, tell landowners about the Healthy Lakes and Rivers projects. And then we actually, through the Scarlet Huntington project we did last year, that is a demonstration site that we can use. So if people are interested, we can bring them out there, and then I'm also hoping to get a demonstration site in the southern portions of the county. So maybe talking to one of the landowners on the Guinness Lake, and asking if there could be a demo site where we could say, hey, if you want to see an example of this, you can come to this property with us.
And the Scarlet Huntington was on our tour.
Correct.
Just trying to get that off. Okay, so word of mouth is pretty much it.
Yes.
Is that adequate?
For now it is, we only have a limited capacity on how many projects we can do. In this area, we do not have a lot of contractors who are willing, or who have not willing, they are willing, but they don't have the capacity as well to take on a lot of these projects. And it would be a large task to take on more than 10 in a year. So by word of mouth is working well with us.
Okay.
Yep.
Keep us informed.
Will do.
On that. Okay. So,
The time to vote on the resolution.
well, I'm just curious if we should have maybe had more details on the fact that it was 1,000 per landowner, or per, it's not actually per landowner, it's per project. So you've got your native plantings, or you've got your rain. So, I don't know. Who would know this? County Manager Hager, is the resolution as it is stated adequate, or should we be fleshing it out with more detail? Is she there? It looks like she's there.
Madam Chair, boy, I don't know how to advise here. I think that the way it is, because it has been reviewed by both the Corporation Council and me as to form, that this would be appropriate at this point. And I do know that going forward, we do need to keep working on these resolutions to make it as clear and transparent as possible. We will continue to make those efforts going forward, but I believe that just approving this resolution will not hold up or not detract from our process of getting that thing approved. I mean, I don't see where the $1,000 would. I mean, I get the concern that was brought up that it says cost share agreement down there. Maybe that's not clear, but again, this has been reviewed by both Corporation Council as to form, and then I kind of like look for typos and stuff. So I think it's good to go. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Okay, so knowing that, yeah, I think we're ready for a motion.
Question,
Yes, I'm sorry, Supervisor Williams.
Chairman. So there's no competitive bidding for these projects. The DNR has chosen who they want to work with in this.
So the DNR doesn't have specific contractors, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, no, the DNR doesn't have specific contractors that they list. There are specifications for the plantings. Like I said, the plants within the plantings. And then there are some guidelines that, these have to stay in place for at least 10 years. And then.
Well, I'm not really talking about, I'm talking about a bidding process, the people that do the contracting for these projects.
So there's not actually a requirement that these projects need to be contracted. So some of these landowners. Well, it's just like planting a garden. So some.
But you're not planning it. You have to buy the product here, and you have to buy this particular construction company. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, you don't have to buy the specific plant. You don't have to buy the plants at a specific nursery. They just tell you what plants you need. They don't, it doesn't matter where you buy them, right?
And the contractor, that's open also. You give $1,000 and that landowner can go out and hire who he wants to do it as long as they match your guidelines.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
even themselves, I would.
They can, yep, and we have discussed it in the department. These are really simple yet impactful projects to do. When we did the Healthy Lakes and River, or when we did the native plantings at Scarlet Huntington, I was out there for 2 hours, maybe planting 3 of these 350 square foot plantings, given we had quite a few volunteers. But 2 hours and it was almost 6,000 plants. So they're quick and easy projects, like I said, that are super impactful. So we've discussed it in the department where we might even go out and help landowners for an hour or 2 with planting. That shows good faith on our end that we are invested in these projects as well. And then, you know, it's hard for landowners to identify some of these plants as young plants,
Well, I
right?
understand.
So we can give them guidelines to help them. Because they
But
have to
I
be.
appreciate the guidelines. I would like to have it open to, the landowner be able to bid it out to an independent contractor or nursery or whichever.
And it is.
It is,
Yeah.
yep, it
Yeah.
is.
So it's okay.
Question.
Thank you. Nice question. Okay, so, we need motion. Oh, sorry, yes, Supervisor McLaughlin.
I have an amendment suggestion,
Okay.
just for clarity. Be it further resolved towards the end, federal rules, regulations, and ordinances related to this project and the landowner cost share agreements. Is it, I don't like the way it's written. Up in the top, it says there's no county match. Then down here, you have a cost share agreement. It needs to be explained at least a little bit.
Okay, so is there anything further to discuss with Supervisor McLaughlin's amendment? Okay, so we need a motion first to change the language of the resolution. So pardon me? We would insert landowner before cost share agreement. Is that correct, Supervisor?
Yeah, you might not even, if you want to put an S on agreement for agreements, but
I'm so sorry, repeat that.
I'm sorry, put an S on agreements. So it reads, this project and the landowner cost share agreements.
I don't know, is there more than one agreement though, Phil?
Yes,
It's just
each,
one.
I think each one is an agreement. isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got your
Everybody,
range.
every landowner has an agreement.
Right, so in the contracts that the landowner signs, it, you know, specifies you are doing 2 native plantings, 2 rain gardens, etc. for each individual landowner, so it would be per the landowner contract and pledge.
Okay, so instead of cost share agreement, should we be putting in landowner contract and pledge?
I think that would be sufficient.
Do we need to run this by corp council if we change the terminology to that extent? I would not think so, but
You would not think so?
an agreement, to me, cost share agreement, this is defined within the contract and pledge, correct? So I don't know, maybe it's county manager Hager still on?
So this is my opinion, to make the amendment I suggested, I can't imagine why you need court counsel's opinion. I can't imagine why. It's just helping to clarify.
Exactly. So, okay, so then the change that is being recommended is landowner contract.
That's not what I said. I just said landowner cost share agreements.
Okay, so you want to keep it as a cost share agreement, even though they're really, the cost share is defined within these contracts and budgets.
Well, then it shouldn't have been written the way it is. I'm just searching for clarification because I don't care if anybody off the street picks this up and reads it. If they're paying attention, they're gonna look at the, remember the top where it says, no county match is required. Down here, it essentially says there is.
Okay,
Because it's not explained that who's responsible for that. I just think that needs to be explained.
okay. Anyone else? Yes, Supervisor Mo.
If it had to be reviewed before it got here, if it's going to be changed, it should be reviewed.
That's my thought too. But we don't wish to hold up the process.
The grant's already,
The grant is already, okay, so
the
this,
pre-application has already been submitted.
okay,
So you have time. There is plenty of time. The actual application is not due until November 1. So,
And if. To add or expand on what Anna said. If it does not go to October's county board, it will not be in time for this year.
Yeah,
My
that's
recommendation would
my
be
problem.
to, if you add that in, or if that motion passes to amend it. Moving on to the county board pending review by corp council before county board.
Okay,
I guess I have a question. We've had other amendments to resolutions, as I recall,
yes,
both here and at county board.
right,
And I can say, I think for a fact, not all of them go for re-review through corp council.
I would agree.
And I don't know if somebody else would weigh in I'm just seeking to clarify this whole thing as easily as possible, and I think my suggestion does that.
I have no problem with your suggestion. I'm just saying that cost share is just a part of it. They also have a contract and a pledge.
Well, okay, then add that, but my point is the way it reads.
Yes,
Up here, no county match, down here, it leads one to believe there is. Without explanation of who is responsible for the agreement.
I would agree. Supervisor Crew?
I'd say this is something new, that we can have an argument about it for half an hour, but this is something we do every year, so I don't know if this is really that necessary. Let's just work through. Hold on, Bill, just, hold on. Don't jump in when you're talking. Let's just work through the motion. If you could, please, and then if it passes, we amend it. If it doesn't, then we don't, and we can move on to things other than this. That'd be great.
Okay, so we're making a motion to amend the language to include landowner before cost share agreement to the language of the resolution. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Doreen Olson seconds it. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say nay.
Okay.
2 nay. 4 four for it. Majority has myself, Bill, or yes. No, because Supervisor Krug and Supervisor Moe said no. Who else am I missing?
Voting members or who's voting members here?
No, but, oh yeah, okay, sorry, we haven't been getting his votes, have you? Okay, I don't know what's going on. He's there. Chuck? Did you wish to vote? Because we're not hearing your vote if you are voting.
Crossed off vote.
Yeah,
I'm having a real hard time understanding what's being said. So because I didn't understand it, I'm not going to be voting on it.
okay. So, yeah, he's abstaining. Thank you, Chuck. All right, so motion has passed. And we'll be changing we'll be adding landowner in front of cost share agreement. Okay, so now we need a motion to approve the resolution as amended. Supervisor McLaughlin is making the motion. I need a second.
I'll second.
Supervisor Wimmer is making the second on the motion. All in favor, say aye. Sorry, discussion, yes?
Now, does require every member's signature on it.
Yes,
So we have decided that we are not going to send this in for review, or we are going to send this into review with the corp council and county manager.
we could certainly add that to the motion of the approval of the amended resolution with corp council's
I didn't have that in mind.
well, that's for your amended, but I'm saying now that we've said, yep, make that amendment, now we have an amended resolution, should we pass that by corp council? So we put that in the motion. A new motion, we need to. do-
Madam Chair, Madam Chair.
Sorry, hold on one second. Yes,
Madam, okay,
Madam.
Madam, can you hear me?
Barely,
Ma-
you're not coming over real well, but.
Okay, so Madam Chair, so if I understand this right, holding this resolution up is going to impact being able to move forward. And it is my recommendation that if you make this amendment on the floor, which you've amended the resolution, that it just move on now to the next level. It does not need to go back through review. You've changed something here that doesn't really materially change the document, so it's still good to form. I think you do not need to think that this has to go back now and be reviewed by Corporation Council and me. It can move on
Okay.
to the next level.
Thank you.
I would think if we would have added the contracts and pledges, then it may needed to have, just because they would have needed to review the contract and pledges. So I think it should be fine as is.
Okay, Supervisor Most, did that answer your concern?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, County Manager Yeager. Okay, so we are making a first and second on an amended resolution. Do we have any more discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Seeing there's no opposition, resolution.
So I have,
Madam Chair,
Motion has been.
when will this be available?
Right afterward. No, yes,
I have to go downstairs to print it,
okay,
but yeah.
so if we give her just a few minutes afterwards.
So can I just verify?
Yes.
Laughlin Wimmer to approve amended resolution to move to county board.
Correct. Okay, so that, once Megan gets that reprinted, revised, she'll bring it back up after the meeting and we'll sign it. Okay. Moving on to surface water education grant resolution. Who do we have?
I'd like to have Kyle give a brief overview of this, and he's available for any questions.
Kyle?
All right, can everybody hear me all right through the mic? Okay, so the surface water grant is part of the 9-key element plan for the 14-mile creek watershed 9-key element plan. There are milestones in their objectives within that plan to increase outreach and increase the effectiveness and reach of information disbursement and engagement of stakeholders. We've had really good response in the past with other programs using mailers out to the residents versus primarily relying on like social media or email in order to elicit new contacts and engage new persons who might have otherwise been passed over just incidentally. So since this is going to be the first stakeholder information in June, before, since the program has begun being implemented, we wanted to engage as many stakeholders as possible. There is a grant available through the DNR to help offset the cost of such an activity. In this case, what we would be doing is sending out mailers to every property owner in the watershed, be 4,250 mailers, so that way, and that'll get trimmed down a little bit as we verify we don't have duplicate addresses. And that, you know, individual addressees don't get multiple invites. And this mailer would include an invitation to the stakeholder informational event, which we'll be holding on June 15th. It would also include a summary of the watershed and the water resource challenges we have in that watershed, as well as a primer on what's being done and how they can be engaged and how they can follow us for holding the program accountable and transparency, making sure that everybody's aware of the actions ongoing and how they can, you know, how to benefit them, how they can hold it accountable if they wish to. And then it will also include a postage paid return, right, as a postcard, because that'll be cheaper than the original envelope we'll send out. And that will have on it the option for them to RSVP for the event, or to sign up for further information. So this is just going to go out once because we don't want to have to do this many times. So we're going to try to include as much as we can within an effective means of communication. And then that gives everybody the opportunity who wants to have more information to have more. And then, you know, there would help prevent redundant messages going out to other people just trying to get saturation of the market, as it were. And then following this mailer would go out probably a month or 2 months before the event. Then the event will be RSVP requested. So that gives every stakeholder the opportunity to engage if they wish to.
So it would be going out April or May for the June 15th event.
Correct.
Okay. Supervisor Owens,
Make a motion to adopt this resolution as printed.
can I ask go ahead, motion is on the floor. Do I have a second? Supervisor Kirby seconded. Open for discussion. I have a question to Kyle. County is responsible for 33% of eligible project costs. Do we have any figures?
Yeah, I crunched some numbers here. And we have a total cost for this entire initiative would be $7,546. The county, the eligible costs to be covered by the county would be 67% or less, depending, you know, on how, if the costs are eligible. In this case, the amount that the DNR, given the spreadsheet that they give us as we entered in the expenses, would be $4,393.69 as a grant request, and the county would front would cover $3,152 as our expenses. And this is for our eligible requests. There would be a few additional expenditures for hosting the event itself, but that is outside of this particular grant.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion, questions?
So, I don't quite understand. This grant is for what is the grant specifically for?
So the grant specifically is to help offset the cost of sending out these mailers as a part of implementing and carrying out the 9 key element plan for 14 Mile Creek watershed.
And the 33% that the county is responsible for is $3,000 some dollars.
Correct, that represents the anticipated. So for this process, what I do is I make a budget of costs, anticipated costs that are eligible for cost share. And the DNR says of those eligible criteria, we will cover a certain amount. In this case, they may cover $4,393. The total anticipated cost of eligible costs for this grant to send out these mailers would be $7,546.
So what is the DNR's percentage of this? You have that?
Yes, so it's 1 second, please. So in this case, the grantee share percentage is 43% because there was on the spreadsheet a couple of things that were not eligible. So it makes it look like there's a larger percentage. But that would be that'd be 58% is what the county or the DNR is covering. I will be reviewing the final budget form a little bit for the final application. That might be narrowed down close to that 33% that the county normally be. But that's just because I listed some expenses that aren't eligible for funding. So this is 43% of the total grant is what we'd be expecting to cover. But we still would, they'd still be covering up to 67% of eligible expenses.
So are the only two people involved in this for the expenses are the DNR and the county?
Correct.
There's no landowner?
There's no landowner cost or anything. This is entirely an internal department function.
So, okay.
So this is a cost share agreement. Yeah. This is the cost share grant from the DNR to the department.
Seems to me there should be other people involved in this. You know, particularly landowners along 14 Mile Creek.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
It seems to me there should be other people involved in these costs. You know, who's responsible for the
So may I just interject, Supervisor Roman?
Sure.
I think what we're looking at is an invitation to participate. So it has to go out to everyone that's in this watershed. And then it's up to the person to come back and say, oh yeah, I'm in,
Right.
or I'm not. But somehow that invitation has to be deployed. Am I understanding
Correct.
it correctly?
It's an invitation and also a solicitation for engagement. So this is an outreach activity. And we wouldn't ordinarily expect the target audience to be reached through an outreach event to pay for their own solicitations.
Right.
So this goes out to just people in the watershed,
Correct.
and so that's ag and property owners,
All property owners, that's correct.
all property, including ag.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Seeing there's no opposition, we are passing this on. It'll go in front of the board. What is the board meeting, October 18th, maybe? I don't know. Okay. Motion is passed. Going on to item number 15, APHIS 2023 budget for WDACP. Can you bring that up, Megan? Okay. Are there questions, discussion on this 2023 budget for WDACP, and also is Wyatt, you're on. Wyatt, first of all, could you give us a 20-second tour on what this document means?
So what this is can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so what this is the, basically the yearly budget for Adams County to be in the wildlife damage abatement and claims program. This money is all reimbursed from the state, so the cost isn't necessarily to Adams County. It's basically a transfer of money, and you guys just have to approve for Adams County this amount, basically. So if anyone wants, I can go into what the damage program does and provides for the county. I think some of you or most of you probably already know, but this is basically what our office came up with for Adams County for this year. So.
Do you wish Mike to go into further details? Supervisor Bones?
I move to approve.
Supervisor approved the second. Open for discussion. All right, seeing that there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Seeing that there's no opposition, the motion has passed. The budget has passed. Wyatt, while you're still on, we're gonna move on to the 2022 crop price sheet.
Okay.
Go ahead and give us your spiel on the proposed prices.
So these crop prices, basically I take a monthly check. So I start in October every year, and then I go through until this September, and then I average that out for each of these crops so that we have a nice average price of what these crops are. We're not just going by any one month where it might be extremely high or extremely low prices. And then these are for Adams County, the only 3 crops this year that I foresee having us having to deal with or do any assessments for. And so these are just proposed prices. You guys can certainly change it if you think that they should be a different number, but this is my suggestion. And then also suggest basically a 90% harvest cutoff date of December 1st. I would assume that most crops would be harvested by then. And in Adams County, I think we have 3 full program people, and they should have their crops in by then. I would assume. I heard or talked with most of them. So.
And what are the date averages? Could you run that by me again?
So I go from October of this year and I run it through September of the following year. So this is be last October until September of this year for crop prices. And then I average that out for each of these. So I go on monthly onto several different basically cooperatives and websites to get an average price for the central Wisconsin area. So I'm not getting prices from Iowa or Idaho or some other place. We're getting them from right here in our state for the most accurate number I can come up with. So.
Okay, thank you, Wyatt. Is there questions? Yes, Doreen.
What are these numbers used for?
What's that?
What are these numbers used for?
So when we go out and we assess the wildlife damage to a crop field, we'll come up with the number of, say for corn, the number of bushels that are missing, that are estimated from deer damage. And so if a person ends up having, say 300 bushels of corn, then we'll take that, multiply it by the 622. That'll be their claim for the year. So that, again, I guess can go into further detail on the damage program if you want, but that's basically how that works.
Yeah, no, that sounds good, Wyatt. Yes, Supervisor Mullins.
Move to approve.
Motion's on the floor.
I have a question.
Oh, hold on.
Okay, how much was spent by the county in this program last year? The last 365 days. May I get an answer to that?
Wyatt, do you have an estimation?
I do not know what is total spent. I would have to get with my supervisor to have that number. So.
Yeah, I won't approve until I get those numbers.
I'll second the motion.
Supervisor Krug seconds the motion. Any other discussion?
I don't think setting the price alters the payouts or the program. I don't.
Well,
I mean, other than-
I think if we altered the prices, we can do that. However, it appears to me, and I could be wrong, but to do an average from last September through October, I think we're covering pretty much all bases. Yes, we have ups and downs, but it's a pretty large window.
Yes, what I'm saying, what I mean is how much they spent in the past year. These these are just the average prices that the farmers get. It's not.
Moving forward.
Right, it's not a claim. It's not going to affect the program other than what the price the farmer or the producer gets. So
What the claim is based on.
right,
Yeah.
Well, I would disagree. I would think that the cost of the county would be very important.
Right, we already approved the amount.
Right.
We did?
Yeah, that was the last thing we just did.
Right. We approved the.
Well, wait,
He's, the resolution before this approved the 27,000.
Oh.
this is just approving that these are the
The
average
price.
prices for the year. So when they go out and do the things, they know what to base it on.
Thank you.
so we have a motion on the floor. I'm sorry, yes, Supervisor McLaughlin.
Not to belabor the issue, but my curiosity always gets the best of me. The gentleman mentioned, I mean, when asked about how they come up with how much they're owned or owed, the response was, well, they determine how many bushels. My question is, how do you determine how many bushels?
It's just every
That's what I'm asking.
Why would you answer Supervisor McLaughlin's question? How are the numbers?
So I guess I think what you're asking is how do we come up with the number of bushels lost, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so for corn, basically you go out, you walk the fields and we will come up with both the area damaged, and then we will take samples from damaged areas and we will take samples from undamaged areas that are adjacent. We don't go to the farmer's best corn and we don't go to their worst damage. We try to find average. This is their average damage. This is their average good looking corn. And then we use basically a predetermined formula of weighing out that corn that gives us the number of bushels per acre. And then we do that in the damaged area. And then that's subtracted out. That's your number of bushels damaged per acre. And then we come up with the amount of acreage that's damaged. And then that's how we get to that bushel number. Again, it's an estimated number, and that's kind of how that works.
Did that answer your question, Supervisor McLaughlin?
Well,
Okay, all right.
I have one more question.
Yes, Supervisor.
So what we approved is basically a swap in cost with the DNR. That my feeling, or my interpretation was what we approved before was basically it's a swap in cost. It doesn't really cost the county in the long run.
That,
So
that is,
cost to the DNR, they pay for it.
that's my understanding. Is that correct, Wyatt? That the budget that we approved in item A will derive the claims in what we're approving here in terms of the prices.
So the first part that you did is for running the program for the year, and that is a cost that the DNR reimburses the county for. So that part will be a wash. But what we're doing right now is the price proposed for crops for this year for when we do the damage assessments. Right now, we're in the process of going out in those fields as they harvest them and getting those numbers. And later in the year, we will present you guys with the claims from this season, and you guys will approve or not approve those claims at that time. In which there has to be the number of deer harvested and these other program requirements of hunter access, that kind of thing. That's where that comes into play. Right now, we're just approving that this is what you guys agree that is roughly the price of crops this year.
So really and truly, the claims, once they start rolling in, those would be out of the 2022 budget, not the 2023. Correct?
Those are not part of the budget. Those
They are,
are paid,
okay.
those are paid directly by the state. Yeah.
Oh, good, okay, all right, so no cost to the county. Okay, in a nutshell. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve these prices as proposed, unless there are other prices that someone wishes to entertain. Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed, say nay. The motion is passed. Wisconsin deer donation. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, why, on that crop price sheet, you need December 1st in that date, 90% of Adams County.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Or unless you guys have a different date in mind, but I don't see anyone that wouldn't have their crops harvested by then.
I didn't have that, okay, no, I just wanted to clarify, thank you. Okay, Wisconsin deer donation.
So this is just saying that you're willing to participate in the venison donation program again in 2023. It's basically it. Processors within your county can opt into this program if the county agrees to participate. There's a packet of information. This is if you're interested, and we can, I don't know if the whole packet is here, or if it's just the sheet to agree to participate again. So
I think it's just this sheet, because I was looking for the packet and I didn't see it, so. Supervisor Mons,
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Maureen seconds that motion. Are there any questions or concerns to be discussed? Anybody? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, say nay. Motion is passed. All right, we are going to move on to, thank you, Wyatt. We're
Yep.
going to move on to 2023 land and water budget.
Basically the same as either extension of county manager column is the one we're addressing. I do need to request that we amend the 4 different lines to account for the grant proposal that you did approve. It was in there, but at a lower amount, so it's increasing it a little bit. I think I have the line numbers for that.
Yeah, where those?
So on the page 1, if you look to the left, at a whole bunch of numbers, 100 R44, a 5-digit number, 3 zeros, and then 626. The DATCP SWRMP FP grant. That number needs to increase to 4394. Which would be an increase in our revenues by about 1,400.
That is 4394 or 4393 is 4394. Yeah, what Kyle said originally, but that's okay. So 4394, because it had some change with it. And that is
I'm lost, I'm sorry. I'm not seeing those numbers on my page.
About the 8th line down.
Where the blue highlight is. If you go all the way to the end where it says county manager,
Right.
3,000 would go to 7,394. Yes, no.
4394.
Oh, we're just, okay, so we're not including the 3,000. Because we already have
We're going
3,000
from
established.
3,000 to 4394.
Okay, so just
That would be
1394.
that would be coming back.
Okay, so we're just increasing it by 1,000. Yeah, 1,394. Okay.
I make that motion.
I have a couple more. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah,
do
we'll do it
Hold
on
that
that.
motion,
Yeah, you finish
Supervisor
that, I'll
Clerk.
make the motion, we'll move on, we'll get you taken care of.
All right, now we're on to page. Almost last, well. About the 4th page. It would be under, well, it says page 2 at the top, I guess. In the 3rd column, you'll see one that's a 9-KE. Are you finding those?
Yeah.
So the first one's postage and box rent, currently 500. I would need that to go to 2,400. 2 lines further down. Copy machine from 400 to 1,000. And almost to the bottom of that page, community outreach from 3,000 to 3,165. And all those are all part of that same grant.
Okay.
More reflectively. In the budget, just the way it's laid out is anything with a 626 number towards the beginning is all part of that one grant. For example, there's other, you'll see 3-digit codes instead of zeros, and generally those are a way to track grants and projects together.
Okay.
I just want to verify the right numbers. So increasing revenue, 1,394. Expense 410, which is the postage,
410-626.
Yep.
Yep.
2,400.
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
413, 626, 1,000.
Yep.
448, 626. I didn't catch that one.
3,165.
2,165.
Thank you.
So 1,900, 600, and 165 are the increases for the expenses. Okay, so that's different. Okay, yes, Supervisor Reynolds.
And again, these are covered grants. You're not increasing the county. And you are increasing what the county is paying, but it is coming in from grants. You're adding that to them.
This is a 33% share of county. Of county funds.
Yeah, this reflects the numbers that Kyle gave you.
Move to approve with the amendments.
Second.
Okay, so we have an approval with amendments by Supervisor Bones, second by Supervisor Krug. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion is passed. And we will, okay, so now I need to entertain a motion to send the finalized draft with these amendments to the Administrative and Finance Committee. Supervisor Mons to make the first motion, Supervisor Cruz the second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion is passed. Okay, moving on to generate and discuss ARPA ideas. Have we come up with any?
Can you tell me what ARPA stands for? I apologize.
America Rescue Plan, no, American Rescue Plan Act. Thank you. I don't know. I don't think it's a project. I'd love to do this, but can you do it?
Something.
America Rescue Plan.
Cynthia's on, so.
Oh. Cynthia, what is ARPA? Yeah, it is plan.
Madam Chair, it's a American Rescue Plan.
Act. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, County Administrator, County Manager Hager. Okay, so, we're gonna bring ideas. Anna, Megan, Dustin, Lynn, and Water, you three are here today. Any ideas, Dustin, generated through the department?
At this, what I'd like to do is ask Cynthia to address this. I think she's on.
I think so. County Manager Hager, would you like to address this?
Okay, Madam Chair, so I'm assuming this has something to do with the reverse osmosis water?
Actually, at this point, yes, we had brought up reverse osmosis, but we are interested in other potential projects that ARPA funds might be utilized for. So,
Okay, well, then I'll yield until I hear something maybe that'll spark me.
okay, did you wish to go into the reverse osmosis?
So, Madam Chair, I know that that was brought up last time, the reverse osmosis, and I was kind of confused on whether that was a county-wide, anyone that has any flaw at all in their water table. It seemed like the last thing I heard was somehow make this county-wide, but and since then I kind of put some numbers together. I think it's roughly $200 per household, but then you have businesses. This is a huge undertaking. It would consume all ARPA funds plus if you did it that way. And then I'm just putting it out there. There's more to consider than maybe just a blank statement of perhaps doing reverse osmosis for all county residents and or businesses, because they'll want to get that as well. And then there's also the process of trying to monitor, like, how do we make this equitable? And then, who's going to be taking on that challenge? And again, it'll consume basically the rest of ARPA. So anyway, just throwing that out there. Reverse osmosis is roughly $200, and that's for a cheap unit.
And now is that the full price of that unit, or is that a cost share? So we're talking double that.
I can tell you that that's what I paid for my house. That's the cost of my reverse osmosis, and I
Okay.
went the cheap route. So.
Okay, Supervisor Krug had a question?
Yeah, I think more of our discussion was kind of geared towards nitrates and groundwater, trying to make sure that we limit it to nitrates instead of, any other contaminants that we haven't really dealt with on a bigger basis. So if we kind of look to narrow it down to people who are 10 parts per million or higher nitrates, try to vet out those numbers like other counties have done before. I think that gives us a much better idea of where we're at as far as trying to work on these systems. And the $200 per person for a single point of use within a home, instead of a whole home system, I think that's adequate. I think that's the right track to go on. If we get to the point where we want to discuss how to make it more equitable, we could try to figure out income limits and things like that, like we do for septic replacements. So I think there's a path forward that we can use on different things that have already been done, whether it's cost share, income limits, limited to certain contaminants and certain types of systems to be considered. I think those four things play into it really well. And I think we can come up with something rather quickly that won't break the rest of the ARPA thing.
Thank you, Supervisor Krug. Supervisor Mons?
These meetings are recorded.
Yes, they
And
are.
I think if that was played back, that was the discussion, specifically on nitrates and on share costs.
Yeah,
Not that we're putting in the whole thing.
Right, and I'm pretty sure it was derived off of the well testing result. So, did that alter, I would assume, your figures that you gathered, County Manager Hager?
All I have is the 200 per household, and that's the total cost. And then I took it by population. That's not to consider businesses that may also have, water testing results that are not positive, or, that may have nitrates. The other consideration here for this group is to bear in mind that we have an opioid epidemic, which is another use of the funds. So we would hate to use or try to request the balance of this what we have, when we have other considerations, it's now getting down to the wire, I guess.
So correct me if I'm wrong, your figures that you have supplied us with are the absolute worst case scenario. Every single person would want an RO system.
Yeah, so, trying to remember, Kyle, you gave me a population number, right, for residents? Full-time residents?
No, I think I told you how many parcels we have. I think it's 40,000 parcels roughly.
So
I do,
go ahead.
I hate to jump in. Anna would like to shed a little light on this topic.
Yeah, the DNR is actually using some of their ARPA funding for a project very similar to this, for residents in Wisconsin who can apply for kind of a cost share program for an RO system. And then one thing to mention too is an RO system is not the fix all. When it comes to nitrates and groundwaters, there's a lot of different considerations. Sometimes if a well or a source of private drinking water is testing high, say, well over 10 ppm parts per million of nitrates in the drinking water. If you do put an RO system in, 2 to 3 years after that RO system is put in, if it's not paired with a different kind of system, the membrane within that system could be shot just because maybe the water is too hard. So sometimes they do have to be paired with a water softener. So you would really want to look into, are you setting these landowners up to potentially have to pay even more in the future? And is it really best, right, for that individual property? And the DNR, like I said, already has, they're already using a lot of their ARPA funding for home private wells, but also there's a separate pool for businesses.
Well, I was just gonna say that, like city well water, that they test and they would be under the limit, wouldn't they? Or not?
Hopefully.
Okay, because then you're talking city. Those, that would be out of the funding.
So Doreen, you're implying to remove those parcels from the equation.
Correct.
Okay, and in truth, I'd be interested to find out how many parcels actually have residences on them that are pulling water. So I'm not sure per parcel is a good math equation in my, go ahead, Supervisor Cruz.
One of the things that DNR has also worked on, we've worked on legislation for it, is expanding the well compensation program. So there's another $10 million coming out of ARPA funds for well compensation for people who are beyond RO being a potential fix. But I still think with the data that we collect and the information we have, I think if you give us a month to even just vet some of those numbers out, I think we can figure out where the hot spots are in the county. Start at least helping those homeowners get to a point where they can see future solutions down the road. And we're not gonna fix the problem. And working in real estate, I know, especially on the other side of the lake, I'm selling houses over there and seeing the houses in the 30s to 40s. I know that with RO, we've gotten down to the 10 and 8 and 9. Not perfect. There are some places in, say, Portage County where it's 70, we're not gonna fix it. But I know we can make a big dent. And I know with the state's help, eventually, when the state program gets a little further down the road, we can help them even further. But I just think with all the ARPA money that we've received, all the conversations we had about ARPA money, all the citizen input from this county for decades on water quality and groundwater contamination, I think it would be an absolute shame if we didn't take a step to do something with this ARPA money for that situation. I think it's reprehensible that we are gonna look past it for everything else and just say, okay, well, we don't have any left because we spent it on whatever else we spent it on, right? I mean, that's what we're here for. And if we can do some of that committee work together, just pulling some of the numbers out of the department and just say, okay, this is where hotspots are, these are where the programs work, let's put them together in the next month. If it's, I'm guessing out of the 20,000 residents we have, my guess would be 2,000 to 4,000 homes are gonna have, massive nitrate contamination problems that need to be addressed at some point. Just a guess. I mean, this is something that's not gonna break the bank if we just put it together. And I think if we take a month to do it, I think we can get this figured out.
And I think it's great like Anna said, if you have hard water, you might have to do a water softener, so I think it's great to have that information handed out to these homeowners at the same time, that, hey, this ain't just gonna fix it, you might have to do other things. I mean, getting information out there is important.
Well, and I also think replacing your membranes is, or filtration systems are also, you know, conceivable. I mean, if you've got 3 years on one, then, right, you're gonna need to replace it. So it's not, you're right, it's not an end all be all solution, but it'll help. So,
Madam Chair,
yes, Supervisor Romer.
I'm opposed to this just because the agreement was that we would test the wells. And we give the results for the well. If there's a problem, and that's James has already said that there's DNR money available to fix it. Nothing's ever going to complete the fix forever. But I think we shouldn't get involved in additional expenses on this.
Thank you, Supervisor Romer.
It's-
Supervisor,
It's a pit that will just suck money.
Supervisor Crew.
You know, when the DNR talks about a program, we're sharing it between 72 counties. When Amsco is talking about a program, we're talking about splitting it between a certain amount of townships that don't have municipal water. I think there's definitely something we can contribute towards solving this issue, and the ongoing, the ongoing concerns that Anna brought up and Doreen mentioned, that's what gives those landowners and homeowners skin in the game. We're not fixing the problem for them. We're helping them get towards a solution. They're going to have ongoing costs. They've had to make choices about where they're going to remain for their residents. They're going to have to make choices about their town's zoning requirements and coming to us for zoning issues for projects that are going in. They're going to have to come to us and say, we need your help with making sure that our communities can stay safe with our groundwater issues. I mean, there is a lot of skin in the game for any homeowner that we're talking about, and any residents that's got this problem. That's not a problem they created. When we talk about the role of government, I am the most limited role of government guy that you're going to find. The role of government is for public safety and health. This is public safety and health. Bottom line, there are things that we have to be limited in government, but public safety and health is the absolute role of government when it comes to large communities and making sure those communities as a whole are taken care of.
Thank you, Supervisor Crew. Yes, Supervisor Mold.
I'm in 100% agreement with Scott, and I think that we need to bring back better numbers in expectation where we could possibly say, this is the amount that we request for land and water, and this is it. It's just like the county well testing program. There's so many tests available, and once it's used, it's done. We don't go continue to testing well. But I agree 100% with the statement of safety and the well-being. Because although this is not a drug, it can be fatal. High nitrate can
Absolutely.
be fatal to having children and pregnant.
Very damaging, yes. And I have a question for you. Okay, so we've got three towns, 3 municipalities that we're currently testing with results, right?
We've been, or yeah, it's completed.
Okay, so would we be using that to forecast what we are assuming would be numbers for the county as a whole?
Could we?
Could- Say that again, Supervisor.
People do private tests too, though, so they've got.
Right.
Other sources. Whatever test.
We don't want to make this a horrible situation, but we have to get some kind of baseline numbers, right?
I don't think you can take one township or 3 townships and do that across the whole county.
I don't either.
And one thing is, we don't have the specific datas, right? We don't have the specific numbers, so when we did the well testing program, that was an agreement with the landowners that the county will not house your specific data. UWSB has that data, but they have different kind of rights given they are a lab. What I would suggest is other counties do have a program like this. If this is potentially something the Land and Water Department looks into, I don't want to speak on Dusty's behalf, but we can dig in more to their plans and come up with a specified plan of action like we had for the well testing program.
So for an RO system, cost share.
We can review the other counties' plans. And see how they came up with that, or came up with their.
Would you be happy to do that? I know you guys have an extreme workload, but I think, again, we are talking about public safety. We're talking about limited funds.
Can I ask, because we're under the generate and discuss ideas, is there anything else? Like other priorities or other ideas that you guys would find important?
Does the department have other needs, projects coming up that?
We haven't talked about this because there was some misunderstanding. But we can certainly do that. And then I also know there's the ARPA work group, but I can. Staff can
But
discuss it.
my understanding, and I could be totally wrong, but we need to actually figure out what to send to the ARPA work group. Right? I mean, if you don't send something to the ARPA work group, it's not going to be considered. So that's my understanding. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. So yes, Supervisor Mon.
I don't know if this needs a motion or not, but I think we should table it until we have some better numbers. And I would like to see numbers coming back next month.
On the RO.
No, on the parcel, on the, we've got 20,000 parcels in our county. Of those, how many have a well on it? And then how can we eliminate the parcels of Friendship and Proper, or, the rural, or excuse me, the urban part of Adams County? Because there are urban parts with water. I suppose Friendship and Adams are the only, I think.
Well, I would think they would have a lot of the, how many wells
Yeah.
are in, and then you would take out for how many are residential, right?
Well, if they're wells, they're not gonna be on a resident, it's gonna be residential.
No, because you have farmland, high capacity wells.
Oh,
Farms,
that's true.
animals.
Crops don't care about nitrates. In fact,
So- So,
Crops don't, but cows do.
I've been working with UWSP. Can they supply those numbers at all for us, just to get a kind of a figure of how many wells are we talking?
I don't think UWSP could,
DNR could, though, with the DNR well viewer app.
right,
Yeah.
Okay.
right, and that, and as part of the Central Sands, CSGCC, Central Sands Groundwater County Collaborative, that big long acronym. I think that data has been collected, so we could,
We should be able to identify it.
right,
Okay, so for next month, is it fair to assume that we could have a better understanding of how many wells would require an RO system? No, that's not where.
I don't. Excuse me, I don't think that, I would like to see those,
It
because right
has
now,
the potential, right?
Yeah,
How about have the potential?
potential is fine, because right now we're using a number on 20,000 at 200.
Actually,
That-
40,000 parcels, I
I thought
believe.
you said
Kyle said.
20,000.
I think Kyle said 40,000, yeah, 40,000,
So on that basis, we need to have these numbers,
a little bit more defined.
Correct.
So I wouldn't even say necessarily that it has parcels have anything to do with it. I think it's the well numbers. So is that fair to assume that we could have a more concrete idea next month?
We should be able to identify how many wells there are.
Okay, and then can we also assume that you might be looking at your counties, other RO programs or plans that they have in place?
We can review the other counties, see what they do for their process and help like limits and stuff like that.
Okay,
And then can you also talk amongst the land and water group to find out if there's other priorities or other important areas that are above funds?
is there any cost sharing, that has the potential for ARPA funds? I don't know, we're generating ideas.
We can work on that internally.
Okay. So would that sound good moving forward? Okay,
Madam Chair,
Yes, County
I have-
Manager Gager?
I have one more consideration, as we're putting data together, is, I believe the Strong's Prairie, there was I don't know if that whole area got reverse osmosis because of the landfill, but if we're gonna be doing this, we need to consider those that went that route and already have reverse osmosis. So, I mean, I don't know, just a consideration if we're gonna try to keep this equitable.
I can tell you, I live in Adams County, I don't have reverse osmosis, or I live in Strasburg, very close to the dump.
Okay, so I guess, I'm not familiar with this County Manager here. Could you elaborate?
Kyle, you had mentioned that to me, that there was an area, I don't know how long ago it was, but they got reverse osmosis. Was that you, Kyle, or was that you, Dusty? I talked to someone.
That wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
I didn't dream it. All right, anyway, I'll figure out what
So
that
you're
was.
saying, you're saying to include or exclude the individuals that already have their RO systems, although we didn't help cost share them?
Yeah,
Or
just
did we
to
cost share
consider
through
is all, because it seems like there was an area that got reverse osmosis or some kind of filtration system of some sort for their wells. And I thought it was, had to do with the landfill because of the risk. That's what makes me think it was Strong's Prairie. But again, it was
Maybe
a
it's
conversation.
directly abutting the property. That would be the only ones that I could see. But I mean, I live 2.5 miles from the landfill, so.
Anyway,
Could we
just
find out
saying-
more information on that, County Manager Hager?
Yeah, so just maybe consideration of those that already have it, if we're gonna try to keep this equitable, because they spent their own money getting their water to certain, at least, this is a conversation I had, it was on the fly, so I'm gonna have to figure out where it all came from, but yes, I'll come back with more information.
Okay, so next month. Okay, other ideas, cost sharing opportunities for ARPA funds for the department? Dustin, sorry.
We won't discuss it internally. And
Okay,
We'll come
yeah,
back.
instead of, okay, so you'll come back next month if you come up with any, okay. All right, so that's where we'll leave it. We're gonna go on to the next agenda item, item number 18, land and water staff report. Did everyone receive it? Are there any questions? Anything you wanna-
Wait a minute. I'm sorry, I did have a question. What's on the ballot this year? That Adams County should be involved in clean water? Isn't that
It's a
a,
referendum,
yeah,
I believe
That
so.
was ballot, not through our office.
No, it came from a board directive,
correct?
yeah.
And is that lakes or is that well?
I believe it's drinking water, is my understanding.
I thought it was very vague.
Yep, so that,
I did too.
That's why I opposed it.
So that's on the November ballot, I believe. So any questions for the staff? Or Dustin? The land and water? Any forestry signs up? County forest signs?
They are going up on Friday, Thursday. This week. Signs are made, Digger's Hauling called, I just gotta grab the posts and Carol's gonna be putting those up the end of this week.
Okay. All right, seeing that there are no other questions for the staff, we will move on to the next agenda item, Vms Report.
So, we saw the article in the paper, the Houston Dam has one fixed. Repaired, refilled, and the lake was restocked, there was. Let me try that again, the Houston Dam was repaired, refilled and restocked. Right after restocking, there was approximately 250 of the 18,000 fish died. The supplier came 2 days later and dumped in an extra, or not extra, but replaced those 2 to 1, so he put in about 600 more. So, and I haven't,
Any other floaters?
not that heard of or seen. I didn't tag the one that died the
The
first
first
time
one.
around, but
That's okay.
the only other thing on the dams right now, well, I guess there's two items, or the main one is the Guinness Lake. There's something going on down there. We've been working on solutions and ways to. What's happened is basically the water levels are risen about 10 inches. Happened somewhat quickly, the way the reports came in, and it's been pretty consistent over the last 8 days. We're still, the dam's functioning from what we can tell properly. There may be a clogged inlet. We are still investigating that.
Okay.
Sorry.
When you have the dams, how, can you go through the inspection process again, please? Because it's every 2 years with something and once a year with DNR or something. How does the inspection process work on the county-owned dam?
I'm gonna turn that over to Anna. Because she's usually the one leading that.
So generally with the southern dams, we inspect those every 1 to 2 weeks, when we go down there. And then there is a monthly inspection that we are supposed to do per DNR. It's kind of outlined per DNR. And then Megan actually sets up all the annual inspections. And if the DNR is requiring that a dam be inspected, we do contract that out. Generally through Aries, I think is the company that we use.
So when you contract that out, does an inspection come back? Everything's okay today, but 6 months from now, you better look at doing this, or a year from now, you could have this problem. Do they talk about future repairs, or is it just, it's okay, looks all right right now?
It's an extremely detailed report. They identify everything that's an issue right now. And okay, this is starting, this is something, and they'll put sample, or not sample, but suggested timetables. Okay, in the next 5 years, you should look at repairing this. Okay, this one needs to be done in the next
2 days.
right. So no, it does look long-term, at least over the course of the next inspection period or inspection cycle.
Thank you.
Anything else for Dan's report?
There is, so one of the dams you're speaking of is the Cottonville Dam. That had its annual report this year. There was a issue in the concrete raceway, I guess the best way to put it, that we are going to need to address next year.
Was that the 133,000?
Yep.
I think so.
And that's, well, no, the 133 is the amount that goes in every year.
Oh, okay, I thought it was by Cottonville, so.
Then that's an additional 133. It's not going to be cheap. We will have to start working on this. He said, it's not in it today, but when the gates open next spring, we're gonna have to be checking it daily.
Any funding available?
Work on it.
Okay, okay.
I mean, I can get somebody to help pay for it. I certainly will. But that is a repair that is gonna have to be addressed next year.
When did this come up? When did you?
It was first, the boil was first, or the hole basically was first noticed about a year ago. He noticed it during the inspection on, when did we do the original? July. After he typed up his report, got it to us, he then reached out and said, the more I think about this, this is worse than, or potentially worse than I thought. So last week we did set up or he wanted to meet us back out there. And that's when he amended his report and changed it to say it needs to be addressed. Early, so.
I'm the county representative on Grocery Lake. This is the lake through this Cottonville Dam, right?
Right.
We have a meeting this Saturday. Is this information available to pass on or not at this time?
This is a public meeting, Supervisor Monk, so.
Well, I was thinking the dam inspection report, he has now submitted that to the DNR, correct? I think that's what the email yesterday was. I can give you the inspection report. Which does detail what it is, I mean, it details the entire
What about,
condition of the dam.
what about the statement on cost and what the timetable is?
The timetables in the report of what he suggests should be the timetable, saying next year. He didn't address costs in there. And I haven't started looking either. That was a guess.
Where did 133,000 come from?
We have 133,000 annually put in. And when I talked to Kyle, because it's gonna be a substantial amount of concrete work. And it's gonna have to be by specialized, and it's not gonna be a typical concrete company. We didn't come up with a number to make sure that we had it in there for next year.
And then continuing the question, educated or not, is there any idea about a drawdown at that time? Necessary in your opinion?
There should not be. It's not in the main area. It's on the other side with the changer gates, and that can be sealed off. Actually, we did talk to the gentleman from Ayers quite a bit about that. And that area should be able to be isolated and redone without any effect to the lake.
Then again, Dusty, I would appreciate the email, and if you want to do that to my county email, that'd be great, because that is the only thing that I would like to then be able to discuss at the meeting on Saturday. I will not entertain cost, timetable, or anything of that nature.
Yeah.
I'll just say that they've discovered an issue.
And
The county is,
there's actually pictures in the report and everything else. So I'll send you the report if you want to look it over, and if you need more information.
very good, thank you.
So Justin, it was noticed in 2021. It was worse in 2022, and the fix is for 2023 at this state of affairs, at this time. Is that correct for Cottonville? Okay, all right. Anything else? For Dan's report?
No.
Okay. Lake Alliance report. Chuck, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Would you like to share anything with the report?
I don't think I have anything to bring forward at this time.
Are there any questions from the committee for Chuck? I see none. All right, Chuck, thank you very much. Moving on to number 21, FSA report. I think last meeting, you mentioned that the meeting was on September 8th. Is there anything to report from that meeting, Doreen?
No, there's a lot of procedural stuff that we do, really boring stuff that. But necessary. And then the only other thing to report is that Chris Riley's term limit is up at the end of this year. He's a representative at the southern end of the county. I believe elections are in December. We did find someone that was willing to run, so elections will be held then in December.
When is the next meeting?
I think it is. I think it's in December. Okay, I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mhm.
For the CSGCC committee, that September meeting was canceled. There will be one in October. So at this date anyway, at this time. Debt cap report, were there any questions that was attached? I'm seeing none, but, okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Financials, they were attached. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next meeting date is November, pardon? This is the first? Okay, November 1st at 1 PM. And is there any other further business? Yes, Supervisor Cruz.
Just letting you know, November 1st, I probably won't be here. Kind of getting close to
Okay,
other things.
all right. Can you find a, okay, all right, thank you. All right, seeing that there's nothing further to be discussed, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Oh.